You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I'm Joel Miller.
and we're going to get right into it. Joel, what is your hot take?
My hot take is that the best referral you can get is the one that you were never part of. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, like, the warmer the lead, sort of, that comes in, the more direct the referral was. In my experience, the less likely it is to convert.
Okay, I want to dig into this because one, I really like what you're saying in that, like, if it feels like it's totally like a third party recommendation that people are more interested in it. But then I'm going to ask the immediate next question that I know every follower is listening and thinking about. Okay,
Yeah,
how do I actually get those referrals if I'm not a part of the conversation?
right, for sure. Yeah, and I think like the key thing is how do you get those, like, I call them like soft referrals actually, but how do you get those, right? And I think it is by developing an audience and followers and people talking about you a little bit more, but you're part of the discovery path. And so like the main thing that I see, and I thought a lot about this as I've kind of tried to figure out what's going on when this happens, when someone recommends us so directly, you must work with this guy Floor. And then that person comes to us and it's like, it feels just like so dead immediately. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I think it's because people want to discover you. They want to discover the person they're trying to hire. And they haven't been able to go through that process when they have such a strong direct referral.
So when you're thinking about that, like how do you just people want to discover you, right? And I totally agree. Like when somebody says, "Oh, you have to use my friend, they're incredible," right? Then I immediately have that twinge of like, are they incredible because they're incredible or are they incredible because they're your friend? Like what is the reason that you're really recommending them? So how can we create manufacture is maybe the wrong word, but that's really what I'm
Yeah,
trying to do.
yeah.
Like how can we
Right.
manufacture these opportunities for us that will create that way for us to start to
Yeah.
get involved, to start to build these things.
Right. I think a lot of it, well, one, it is like looking for opportunities, right? Like putting yourself out there, seeing what's working, and then saying yes to the next steps that come along. And so that's actually kind of what I'm doing on getting on some podcasts is like, I'm not actually promoting anything. I'm just honing that next step that I feel like is logical in my journey of putting something kind of spikier out there that relates to
Right.
who I am and my viewpoint. I've written over 300 blogs and I've gotten a bunch of traffic from that. But I'm like, great, I've done a lot of thinking. But I'm not like, that's like a passive share and I want to actively share. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the ways I'm attacking it. I don't really have like the full answer. Like that's my next step, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I have found personally, in doing a lot of podcasts, and I do mostly
Yeah.
my own show, and then I do a little bit of guesting on other people's shows, but I have found I really enjoy podcasting as a medium. As a I guess referral source does make sense because I have gotten a lot of
Right.
opportunity that's come out of these podcasts because people hear you, and
Right.
I firmly believe that, like, especially in our services world,
Yeah.
people buy from people that they like and that they think,
Yes.
are thinking people, and we all wanna work with smart people, and I feel like podcasting especially is a long form way of getting to know the person you might wanna buy from without having that awkward, like, "Hey, you wanna grab a cup of coffee?"
Right, right, totally, and not to, like, totally just sidetrack into podcast promotion, but I found it super powerful too just to, like, hone my thinking even further. There's something that happens when you're, like, live in the moment. You hear something new you haven't thought about before, and now I have to try to say it concisely, hopefully. It's not always easy to do that, but and, like, something happens when you have to, like, do that over and over again that makes it easier for you to communicate those ideas next time you're on the call or with a client or whatever. Like, I'm just enjoying that,
Yeah,
yeah, that experience of like, all right, I'm getting sharpened by this and it's
yeah.
helping. Yeah, yeah.
I can hear the stories that I used to tell the first time like, when I go back and listen to
Yes.
old podcast episodes, the stories I used to tell the first time that I was
Oh my
telling
goodness.
them,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so much clearer now. And the
Right.
other interesting thing that's happened to me, recently is I was on a sales call. A listener
Yeah.
reached out to me and said like, "Hey, I like what you're talking about. This is the problem I'm trying to deal with," and invited me to a call with his boss.
Yeah.
And I started to tell a story. And I started to talk about like an experience that I had working with a client and doing a similar project. And my prospective client actually finished the story for me. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you talked about this on the
Oh,
show."
yeah,
And then
yeah.
he started to like tell my story with me in the room. It was the wildest experience. But I can
Yeah.
tell you, like, it's much more powerful to have someone else tell your story on your behalf than
Right.
you to tell it yourself. And
Right,
so it
right.
was one of those moments where I was like, okay, podcasting is a yes, because
Yeah.
it creates this opportunity for somebody else to tell your story
Yeah.
authentically.
I love that story. It feels like probably if you're a band or something, and the first time
Yes.
you're, like, up on stage and people sing along and you're like, "Oh, they
Yeah.
know the song."
Yeah, there's all these videos of, like,
Yeah.
artists, that's a great example, standing on stage and seeing for the first time a crowd, a stadium of people
Yeah. Yeah.
singing their song and knowing all the words and knowing all of the things like that. That it's a great feeling. Mine was obviously a much more micro, like, we're talking 2 people in a room,
Right.
not
Yeah.
not an entire stadium of people. So when you're talking about referrals, people tend to think about referrals as a very specific, like,
Mm.
"Hey, I know Joel, so I'm gonna
Right.
introduce you I'm gonna do a one-to-one introduction."
Right.
But it sounds to me like you're thinking of referrals as a much more zoomed out version of the word. So tell us more about that thought process.
Yeah, and exactly, like, right, that's what I mean by, like, a soft referral, and I think you're actually kinda nailing it with the podcast, right? You might have someone who's a listener, or maybe they heard about you some way and they do a little bit more learning about you. They build maybe a little bit of a parasocial relationship with you before they reach out. That's
Yes.
great. But, like, another layer is just when you're out there more, you might find, and you're trying to build that audience, you might find someone who resonated with something you said, but they're not actually your target client, but they know someone who is. And so that's like that bigger, wider referral net than just the person, like a client who I already worked with. And they have their friend who does the same thing they do. And they say, you have to work with this person. Those are the ones I'm talking about, where it's like, feels like a no brainer. And yet, so often it just falls apart.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And a lot of times it's also because, like, that person is, they're shopping around, or they asked about it because they're in that mode. So they're coming to me because they don't know anything, and they don't know anything about me. They have uh, they don't understand fundamentally why I do what I do, who I am, what we offer, and so of course, like, it's not a no-brainer. I actually have to do a lot more work to try to sell that person.
When you're thinking about how you start to do this, right? Because, you know, you and I sit here, we have nice microphones, we have good cameras, we have fancy lighting, right?
Yeah,
And so we're a little bit more not professional, but like down the
yeah,
road of committing to this than a lot of people are. But I think it's also the other side of it is there's a little bit of vulnerability that is required to come on here and sit behind a microphone and speak into a camera and talk to a
right.
stranger halfway across the world. So how do you like is that something you just got to get over? It's just part of the game and like you just got to get over it, or what does that look like, and does it have to be speaking into the void, or are there other ways we can build this like soft referral power?
Right. I mean, I honestly think I'm like such a huge proponent of blogging or writing your content somewhere. Maybe it's on LinkedIn. Maybe it's, you know, kind of the where maybe doesn't matter. I mean, you probably have to figure that out for your audience or who you're trying to target. And so that someone will listen, right? Like a
Right.
blog written in a forest probably isn't heard. I don't know. That's, but, uh, but like doing that process, like you're going to find so many benefits from trying to come up with a viewpoint and hone the ideas that, like, maybe get out of the mindset that, like, you're just trying to reach anyone at the beginning, and just start
Yeah.
doing the work. Because if you don't have anything interesting to say and you've never, like, really thought on that level, no one's going to follow along anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to start, you have to start by doing some of that hard work.
Well, and I don't want people my only like pushback on
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
said is
yeah.
I don't want you to think that you have to have some revolutionary idea that you've spent a lifetime in your basement
Yes, yes.
thinking about, right? Because I have found myself in I don't know what to call it, like thought leader paralysis, where I'm like,
Yes.
is this a revolutionary idea? Am I changing the world? Will I win a Nobel Peace Prize with this?
Right,
Like,
right.
will I be in Forbes with this great idea? And then you workshop it and you workshop it and you workshop it. And then you end up
Yeah.
with an idea that's just never goes out there because it's never going to be good enough. I think it is okay to put yourself out there, to put an idea out there. And I actually
Right.
was okay. We're gonna do a live drop of an idea that I had this morning.
Yeah,
So I was
yeah.
getting
Love it.
ready this morning and I was thinking through some of the stuff that I'm working on content writing right now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have discovered is that people are very concerned with themselves, right?
Mm.
Not a
Mhm.
revolutionary idea.
Right.
Um, and a lot of times there are things that I will post or not post because I don't want to come across as stupid because it's a half-baked thought. 'Cause I'm not quite out there yet. I'm not really like I've
Yeah.
got it, but I don't have it. And then I kind of realized like, Alyssa, nobody cares more about you than you do. Like you might
Yes.
post something stupid and somebody goes, "Well, that's dumb," and then scrolls on by and then never
Right.
thinks of my name again,
Yeah.
right? And like the majority of us are not going viral, good or bad. And so like when you're thinking about it, it is okay to just put an idea out there. I mean, think about
Yes.
like, am I going to get fired for this? Am I going to get, canceled for this? That's one thing. But it is okay to kind of build in public and have
Yeah.
conversations in public.
Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah, and maybe I kind of misstated it a little bit a second ago, so I appreciate the
Yeah.
pushback because that's exactly what I wanna encourage people to do, is that it's that process of starting, no matter how perfect or imperfect you are, probably imperfect, right?
Yeah. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
that
Yeah.
is so important, and you'll find that when you put something out there, that it starts shifting your thinking just because you did that. So, like, if you wanna have that, like, maybe not revolutionary, but really sharp idea down the road, it might start with saying something kind of basic. And then I also just want to say, like, how many times that you probably have had this experience where you're listening to something and someone like a podcast and someone says something that you already know. And
Right.
but you heard them say it in a turn or in a way that goes, right.
Yeah.
Now it's like it's spurring me to this different action. I could have said that before or I've heard it before. And so like I don't minimize that everyone's at a different point in their life and their journey, and that the way you might say something might help them. Like offer that gift, as Seth Godin would say, to the world and see what happens.
And I think too, to your point, like you would not have written 300 blogs if you were worried about them being perfect every single time. Cause one, writing is hard work. And two, I don't know about you, but when I go back to some of the original
Oh, oh
podcasts I
my goodness.
recorded, I'm like mortified. Okay, this is actually a funny story.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I coach a high school dance team.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
And they love to like they're Gen Z, they always have these little things and when
Yeah.
they love you, that means they're gonna flame you. So if you like, they will roast the hell out of you because that's how they show their love.
Yeah,
So for example, my assistant coach was a foods teacher during COVID, so she did like YouTube videos with like food tutorials, and they took the transcript of her food tutorial that she did on YouTube and turned it into like a song, right? And
yeah,
like made and like it was a whole joke. So then one day we are getting ready for a competition. It's like our first competition of the season. They're sitting in the corner, like stretching, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna do like a mental motivation meditation thing because that's one of the things I like to do with them."
yeah, yeah,
And I am sitting there, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna get started." And then all of a sudden, I hear the first intro from my very first podcast that I ever recorded, and it's me talking about like, this podcast is for the game changers and the trailblazers and blah 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 blah. Something I don't even do anymore. But
yeah,
it was like episode 1 of 215 or whatever it is now. And I am like, it took me a second. I'm like, wait a minute, is that my podcast? What are you doing? And I was so mortified because I'm like, these 17-year-olds have heard my thing. I'm like, oh my God, other people, professionals,
right,
adults heard that. But
right.
like if you're not embarrassed about it, that means that you shouldn't have done it in the first place because
Mm,
otherwise you're not growing, you're not getting better. And we can't sit here and pretend like episode 1 is as good as episode 200 because if
right.
they are the same level of good, then you are not growing and you might
Yeah.
as well give up.
Oh man, I wrote speaking of blog posts, it's reminding me of when I wrote in the last couple of years where I was thinking about someone I like on Instagram and follow and thinking about how good their reels are, right? And so it
Yeah.
got to me thinking because I'm like, they went viral and they got 1.2 million followers and how did they, of course they did. And it occurred to me all of a sudden, like most people aren't actually erasing their old stuff. So I was just like, scroll way back and go to the first few posts, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible.
Terrible.
Like
Yes,
they
embarrassing.
didn't. You're right. Right. It's totally embarrassing. I just like some of my early blog posts. I read them now, and I'm like, I can edit the crap out of this. I did. What? Why did I phrase that like that? And so I just like I love that idea of like find the people that you inspire you, but then kind of scroll back to their beginning if you can. How far can you go
Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
like be inspired by the journey, not just where they arrived or
Well, and
seemingly
it's no
arrived.
different than the way that we grow as people in general, except
Right.
some of us are choosing to grow publicly and some of us are choosing to grow privately. Like if you think about when you were a first time intern at your first job ever, how
Yeah.
much you didn't even know you didn't know. And
Right.
then now who you are now, like, but that's a private growth. You evolve
Yes.
through performance reviews and feedback from your manager and you get that very one to one. A lot of this soft referral stuff you're doing is going to require public growth and which is
Right.
going to require a certain level of vulnerability
Right.
and a certain level of bravery and a
Yeah.
lot of thick skin. And I also think too, one of the things I had to learn early, and I think you probably I'm gonna make an assumption that you probably discovered it too when you first started like writing online.
Yeah.
There are different metrics out there. Some of them are vanity metrics in that,
Mm.
like, how many listens can I get to? How many likes can I get? How many shares can I get? That don't actually turn into anything of value for you. So being really clear about the reason that you are getting behind a microphone, sitting
Right.
behind a keyboard, talking into your TikTok, camera and
Yeah.
screaming into the void. Like, what are the reasons? If you wanna get famous, you're gonna
Right.
do different things differently than if you want to actually build thought and put your ideas in the world and try to make change.
Yeah, oh, 100%, and that's, like, why I like the process so much, and even those early blogs that I wrote that I see so much, like, that could have been different or changed, and I'll do a little editing here and there, but I go back and I read it, and sometimes I read something and I go, "That's right, I forgot about that idea," like, and it's good, and so sometimes, like, I'm almost teaching myself something, my something I thought about a long time ago that just sort of faded away because life is busy and works like that sometimes. So I think,
Yeah.
like, it's just a there's so many reasons why it's good to do, and but you're right, like, if you're trying to go viral, like, you're gonna make different content, and so you have to kind of pick the
Yeah.
goal of it, right? And that's why, like, a lot of people have been surprised that at this season right now, I'm not promoting anything when I'm doing these podcasts. They're like,
Yeah. Because I mean, that's a
"What?"
question I always ask at the beginning, like,
Right,
in our
right,
pre-recorded chat. Because there's somebody who has a book, a course,
right.
an offer, which no shade, like, we all
No,
have
totally. Take
to do our
advantage if you
thing.
can.
I
Yeah.
have the same thing, though, as I don't have anything that, like, I get that same question when I go on people's shows, and I'm like,
Right.
I mean, myself, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
right, right. I'm promoting, yeah, me, and then also just enjoying, like, talking to you right now. This is
Yeah.
fun. It's
That's the
interesting.
whole reason I, actually keep doing podcasting because I started it about 2 years ago,
Yeah,
and I started it for the sole purpose of I knew that this exactly what you're talking about, honestly, now that I'm connecting back to it.
yeah,
The idea of the soft referral,
right.
I knew that that was how business was done today, and I knew
Yeah,
that personal brand was more important than any Google ad you could ever
right,
create and
right,
ever write, and so I started podcasting, and I knew that if I had guests on the show, if I did interviews, those people would expect me to post their episode. 'Cause you
right,
come on someone's show, you expect your episode to get posted. And
right,
so it was less of a, like, personal brand building exercise and more of a, like, let's just practice and have basically guest accountability partners to make sure I actually put myself out there. And my
right.
first I recorded 10 before I ever posted one, and then
Yeah,
I started posting them, and then I actually discovered that I loved the conversation,
yeah,
the people I get to meet, the ideas that I get to have, the same things that you talked about where, you're just coming on and kinda, like, feeling it out and having conversations. I discovered that I was able to take lessons learned from people who sell B2C products and I'm in B2B services
right.
and things that I could take away. The guy I talked to this morning, he's based in Australia and he is a sweepstakes marketing company. So they
Okay.
work with businesses to do like sweepstakes of, hey, fill out
Yeah,
this Facebook form and win a prize. And I'm sitting there going like, that's so interesting because it's so different from the way that I approach the world. But I learned a lot.
right. Oh, yeah, completely. I love meeting people. I think some of this got drilled into my head. My wife had a wedding photography business for, like, the first kind of 6 or 7 years that I was doing our business, my twin brother and I, and I helped her grow that and promote it and market it because that's what I do. But one of the things I also did was go with her on every new client meeting. And I think in that, like, 6 years, we had 500 leads come in. We shot, like, 100 and some plus weddings together,
Yeah.
and that meant going to, like, 200 meetings in person. And you just sort of, like, figure out that it's so meeting all kinds of people from different walks of life that you may never be in front of is a fascinating thing. And you can like, obviously I wasn't there to interrogate those people or ask questions about their lives in general, sort of. And yet, how interesting is it to just be challenged by people who aren't like you and have
Yeah.
different experiences and knowledge? I love it.
Yeah. And not only like I always tell people, I love the people that I get to meet. I get to build like there's an audience on the other side of the microphone of someone
Right.
smarter, more talented with a different lifestyle than could ever imagine. And then there's the people that they know who might come in and join the conversation. And one of the things, and longtime listeners will know I had that question I ask at the end about like who else should we be listening to. I love it because it opens my horizons to people I might not know exist who could
Right.
create a new neural pathway for me to connect something that I am working on, even if I don't know what it is right now, even if it's a connection I make, somewhere down the road.
Right.
So when you're thinking about how somebody gets started doing this, um, how do they figure out one, what is the best medium for them to start
Mm,
building this soft referral power? And two, what are the things that they need to think about when they are going to go down this path, whatever that path is for them?
right. Medium is so, it's a shifting landscape, right? It's it's kind of always moving around a little bit. So I would say like there's nothing wrong actually with starting with the hottest thing right now. Because that's where you're
Yeah.
gonna find the most active audience. And usually the algorithm of that audience hasn't been manipulated to death yet. Like,
Yeah.
because the people who are creating it haven't had the chance to optimize for the metrics they want to see. And so I would say like do a little bit of research. I mean, tailor it to your audience too, but like if you're going for a broader market, then yeah, do some like look it up. It was Medium a while back for the written word, right? Besides your personal site, probably. And then it's Substack. And then, who knows what's next. So I think that'll shift and you can kind of move around with some of those things. But if you build a great audience on one of them, stick there too. Yeah. And then as far as just like next steps to get started, I think we kind of already covered it, but like just to repeat, in case someone's listening and they feel that little nudge, they should take action. Do it.
Yeah.
The next step is just starting and starting imperfectly. Um, don't get too caught up. Again, people aren't thinking about you as much as you think about you. I love that you said that. It's something that's talked about in our house a lot. It's something we tell
Yeah.
our kids a lot. Like, don't ruminate on this so much because it's going to block you more than help you. And it's also just not true. And so
Right.
you gotta recognize that. So put it out there and don't worry about the judgment that isn't even there.
Yeah.
You will grow and get better.
Yeah. Nobody's judging you, and if they are, it's coming from a place of jealousy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
If some speaking of, let's talk about who
Yeah,
you think we should be listening to, considering all the people that you know or aspire to know. Who else is out there? Who else do we need to listen to?
sure. And this is a tough question, and there's a lot of directions you can go. But I, over the years, have come back over and over again to Marcus Buckingham's book, Nine Lies About Work. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but
Mm-mm. No, I'm gonna add it to my list right now.
yeah, it's amazing. Basically, the premise of the book was like, here are and they're not lies in a malicious way, but here are nine assumptions that we just think are automatically true in the business world. But they researched it, and that's what their business is. So they have all kinds of data, and they're like, it's just not true. But my favorite one is number nine, and it's basically like leadership isn't a thing. Okay,
Yeah.
well, what does that mean? Well, it's that there's no universal like checklist of traits, even though we kind of want to think there is. So there's no like you can't just be like this person has the right amount of vision and charisma and decisiveness to be a great leader. That it's not the same in every scenario. And so they kind of argue what's real and measurable isn't leadership, it's followership, which kind of ties into what we're saying. So like if you it's like the spiky edges that we probably shouldn't flatten out as much as we want to. Like a lot of people are so focused on what are my weaknesses, I need to improve them. It's like
Yeah.
maybe I mean, there's some truth to that, but there might be even more truth to like building your strengths even more, and then leading with that, and then that's where you get the followers coming along, which is measurable. The intangible ideas of leadership are just a little bit more esoteric, I think, than we want them to be.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the fact that there's how many hundreds of millions, maybe even billions with a B, of dollars spent on leadership training and leadership
Yes.
seminars and leadership books and leadership blah, 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 insert whatever
Right.
thing you can pay for out there. But it does come down to, are you able to lead in a way that brings people along with you?
Yes, exactly. Right.
And that is more than that's something you can probably buy the training for that, but there's something about that you might just have, right? You can learn
Right.
to lead, but there is a little bit of an it factor there too.
Yeah. What are the things that are distinctly you? Because that's probably the things that people are more likely to follow. And I think this is
Yeah.
more important in the AI world than ever. Because
Yeah,
like, yeah,
especially as we all regress
yeah,
to the mean and everybody is the same because
exactly.
we're all using the same LLM.
Right.
Like, again, I'm gonna reference the podcast that I recorded this morning.
Yeah.
He talked about Seth Godin's book called Purple Cow, and they
Yes.
were driving through the countryside and the idea that uh you see all these cows that look the same. They're brown, they're black, they're dairy cows, whatever. And I live in the Midwest, so like we have a lot of time to
Yeah.
look out
Oh
in the
yeah.
cornfield. And so the whole premise is, what could you imagine if that cow was purple and how we would
Right.
all stand up and pay attention and look at that cow? And yet we're
Right.
all trying to use LLMs purposefully or not purposefully to become black and brown cows instead of just
Yeah.
referencing the fact that, hey, it's okay to be a purple cow. And you know what? It actually makes you more interesting and stand out.
Right. And then if you and by all means use AI as a
Totally.
right
All
exponential.
day long.
Right, a multiplier, right? A multiplier, but use it to amplify the distinctly you things, and then
Yeah.
put that out there in a way that people know that you're that filter on it. Because that we
Yeah.
still follow people at the end of the day. The AI doesn't make anything on its own. So we should stop asking or being obsessed with, was this AI generated? And start wondering if the person who's controlling it actually is worth listening to, if they're the filter we want to pay attention to.
Yeah. When you are thinking about how people can get in touch with you,
Yeah.
where can they find you online? If they're loving this conversation, if they're feeling really connected with you, where can they find you online?
Theskyfloor.com is the name of our business. And we have a blog there under the ideas tab. You can read a little bit more about my leap day twin brother and I, and then subscribe if you want to, or go to the start page and reach out. I love to have conversations with new people and see how I can help them on the way to their goals.
And if you're looking for me, you can find me on LinkedIn. You search Alyssa Nolte. And if you find the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. I also write on Substack under Alyssa Likes to Talk. Joel, thank you so much for coming on today. I loved this conversation. I love the fresh take of understanding how do you create that soft referral approach instead of just asking people and begging people in your network to open doors for you and recommend your friends. How do you give people you maybe don't even know the ammunition to bring you into a conversation to tell your own story back to you? I think this is a great conversation. I hope everyone loved it as much as I did.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.